What's up, YouTube? What's up, world? This is my first official video that I am making for YouTube. I don't even know what the fuck it's gonna be about. Hey, guess what? Though I do believe that I have a lot to, I guess, speak on or talk about, from life or from my perspective. Probably sitting, from the aesthetics that you see on the screen, you probably wouldn't know that. Fun fact. Well, actually, it's not fun, but it is a fact. I did 21 years in the Department of Corrections. Yes, I did 21 years in the Department of Corrections. And with that, a lot of evolution and discovery, came from that process. But honestly, the biggest takeaway or the biggest revelation for me has been since I've been out right at 5 months. So remember, I've been going 21 years. And I did 21 years. So like I said, I've been through a lot, because of the 21 years. So it's quite fair to say that, I'm fucked up. Like I got some trauma, some psychological scars, some emotional scars, spiritual scars, physical scars for that matter. So anyway, but being out here 5 months, I realized something. Majority of all human beings are incarcerated in some form or fashion. Almost 100% of human beings are incarcerated in some form or fashion. Do y'all agree or disagree? Some of y'all might disagree or not have enough insight to decipher what I'm saying. So yes, I did 21 years in physical incarceration, meaning I was behind barbed wire fences, steel metal gates, concrete walls. Cool. That's definable. That's tangible incarceration. Everybody who's looking at it understands what that is. They, when you know somebody's in jail or in prison, it's obvious. But the least obvious or the more or less obvious forms of incarceration include, and this is a big one, financial incarceration. And what is financial incarceration? Financial incarceration is when you are enslaved to your bills. Meaning your every waking moment is dedicated to either working to pay a bill, strategizing on how to make money to pay a bill, wondering how to twirl or to push back paying the bill because you don't have the money to pay the bill. So the moral of the story is the majority of people are in some form of financial incarceration. Meaning everything they do in their waking life or can't do is because of money. Okay, so then the next form of incarceration is emotional incarceration. And emotional incarceration looks like when you've been through traumatic or painful experiences and you fail to properly heal from that. So you interpret or interact with life or the world from a position of your pain or from your hurt. That's emotional incarceration because you let a situation, a person, an event, a time period in your life, whatever, you let that control, which all incarceration is when somebody else has control over your well-being or your resources or your persons, whether that's psychological, physical, or whatever. That's incarceration, to be confined outside of or without your permission. So that's emotional. That's emotional. And then another one is just mindset or mental, what I call it, mental incarceration. So what does mental incarceration look like? Mental incarceration looks like having negative or limiting beliefs about yourself, about your environment, about the world, about people, about anything. That is a form of incarceration because you're confining yourself or your interactions or your experiences to a mindset or concepts that you may have been given via parents, guardians, or via osmosis, just from music, TV shows, friend groups, school, your neighbors, whatever. So those are all forms of incarceration. And like I said, I've been on this journey 21 years. And as the time goes by, y'all will get to know me, learn more about me. It's a lot of layers to me. So I won't get into it here. But my thing was like, okay, and not to say that I, I have it all figured out, not by any means. Trust me. Like I said, I'm, I'm, I'm getting through this thing. I'm a student of life. I'm a student of the game. But I do walk by or live by certain principles that I developed while incarcerated to help me exit or no longer repeat, should I say, the behaviors or the thoughts or the actions that led to my incarceration. So therefore, I found purpose or discovered purpose in helping people escape incarceration. Basically, in any form, because they all have the same elements. So whether it's a tangible form of incarceration, meaning you're literally in jail or in prison, or if it's a limiting belief that you possess that is keeping you incarcerated mentally, or if it's a traumatic experience you had in childhood growing up. Like I said, just from my own personal journey and my own personal experiences, I have drawn insights from life and from my personal situations that, over the years I have been able to share with others to, help them, escape incarceration. So I guess that's just kind of what this channel is going to be about because it's kind of hard to find somebody with the right mix of experience and knowledge to walk somebody else out of the experience, if that makes sense. Because there are psychologists, there are therapists. I mean, that's cool, and this is just my personal preference. So, hey, take it with a grain of salt. But just me personally, I don't find value in education or information without relatable experience. And what do I mean by that? Uh, and like I said, this is just my personal opinion. But a therapist who helps people get over whatever. I just personally don't value their opinion when it comes to, let's say, the trauma that I experienced in prison or the trauma from incarceration. They can't tell me shit. And that could just be ignorance on my part. That could be pride, whatever. But they can't tell me shit. But then at the same time, okay, it's also hard to find people who have gone through, especially prison, because that's an extreme physical prison. Because like I said, people are in prison every day, emotional prison, financial prison, mental prison. But physical incarceration helped me, or during my physical incarceration, it was rare to find somebody who had superseded the environment while still being in the environment, if that makes sense. Because as I was working my way out of incarceration and all forms of incarceration, not just physical. The physical form of incarceration was easy because I had a exit date. So, I mean, it wasn't nothing I necessarily had to do to fix, or I just had to wait for my physical incarceration. But I discovered that I was incarcerated across the other planes as well, mentally, emotionally, financially, as well as physically. So, but it's just been hard for me to find people who have shared experience with doing time, because that's a very unique situation. The closest thing I can, relate to it is like a person in the military who've actually seen combat, like not just a, pencil pusher. I mean, like somebody who's actually been on the front lines and actually, you know, seen trauma, participated in trauma, been a cause of trauma or a victim of trauma, come back and then also have the information to cause a transformation. Because for me, and like I said, this is just my, my personal belief, but transformation comes from a shared experience and proper information that is properly conveyed to somebody else who's also in that situation. So, like they say, hey, be the change you want to see. So I couldn't really find people to kind of help me through this journey since being out. It's kind of like being on an island. So I was like, well, fuck it. Maybe I can, walk myself through the journey of freedom, the journey to freedom, while also, letting other people experience or, come along with the ride, and maybe something I say could, help somebody. Because for me, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about with me. Just, trying to free people. I discovered my purpose through my pain. So once I started down the path of incarceration, like I said, the light bulb came on and helped me realize, like, wow, a lot of people are fucking incarcerated in multiple different ways than physically. Wow. And that just led me down a path and a journey to basically I want to release every person on the globe that's incarcerated. And hopefully y'all can help me out. Like I said, any comments, feedback, any suggestions, any critiques, hey man, I'm open to it. So let's move forward, and hopefully, we can build a strong community of healthy humans. That's all I want to do.